Welcome to the Soul Too Early Sports Card Podcast, where our future is as bright as the sun during a solar eclipse. Kai is not here. I'm blinded by the sun. Welcome back, everyone. Hello. A little bit of a different episode today. I have a little more of things written out than usual. Since Kai was not free, this was actually a piece of content I was thinking of making as a standalone episode, another piece of video content to exist on Soul Too Early. And what we're actually going to do is talk about realistic and actual ways to scale a sports card business, ability of way to grow your inventory, ways to kind of look at this more from the quote unquote business perspective, using methods that I've used and achieved success with. What's ironic too is as I was writing this idea up, sports card investor Jeff Wilson, whatever, releases Dumb and Dumber book or sports card investing and collectors for dummies. That had been announced a while ago, maybe even a year ago at this point. It finally came out today. Maybe he just posted about it, but print media is dead. I think most people know that, so that book is already out of date. It'll be interesting to see what reception comes of it. I mean, newcomers will obviously not know any better, which is perfectly fine. People who've been in this forever, but that's stupid, which is obviously my opinion as well. I might try and grab it one day off eBay because I'm not going to give him any of my money, so that's fine. Maybe we'll do a book reading of it, or we'll do a book club, I should say. But anyway, today's episode is similar in that vein, obviously, but we're going to be using my perspective and my insight into the sports card world. I actually had shared this earlier today on Instagram because obviously we are at tax season. Taxes are due on Monday, the 15th of April. For everyone who has not started their taxes yet, I'm sorry. Please go and do that. And obviously people hate taxes. I absolutely do as well. But it gave me the opportunity to talk some numbers. And I don't love to share my numbers about sports cards and my successes, quote unquote. I shared it one time at the very, very start of this podcast a year and a half ago at this point because it was worth saying because at that point in time I had grown to a 7-figure business, not per year, obviously I wish, but in my time in the sports card world. And since 2017 I have generated over $1.5 million in sales for sports cards, and that is strictly related to digital payments, PayPal, Venmo, anything that requires taxation. Since 2020, that's about 1.25 million. I know what the hell I'm talking about. I would say that is more quote unquote impressive than 99.98% of people who will listen to this podcast or the standalone episode, whatever you want to call it. And obviously, once again, that's not profit. That's not me including trading of cards, not me doing stuff at shows. That is digital payment received. And I'm not here to say fancy numbers and high numbers to flex on them hoes and show you how great of a hobby influencer and a goat I am. In fact, it's probably the exact opposite. I don't give a shit. I don't need your approval. I don't need to be a hobby legend. I need to impress all the dudes with my fake Rolexes or my Gucci bag or whatever people actually do to impress other men. Because I don't care. What I am trying to show, though, is I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And you will get a better lesson here for free than the $5.99 or $14.99 or who the hell knows what that Jeff Wilson book will cost, or any guru guides that people have ever tried to sell to people. You'll learn more from this fucking video than anything else on the internet, or your money back, which is good because it's free. And you can disagree with me if you want. I don't care. I want to also make some promises to you, though, because obviously there's a layer of joking around in here. I'm about 75% serious at any given time on this podcast. And even in that intro, I was being kind of a little bit of a jerk about it. But let's get real for a second. This is what I will promise you over today's video. I will make the following promises. I will never tell you, or I will not tell you to buy any specific player. I will give examples. I will say, here is my thought process. I will never name any specific player during this. So there'll never be a clip now from 5 years ago saying, oh, buy Will Greer, he's 4 times better than Kyler Murray, or buy Ben Simmons. That's not going to happen here. This is meant to be timeless information, meaning that the thought processes and patterns and ways that I've identified the sports card world will always have some kernel of truth. It might be a little bit outdated or changed in how we prospect or how we buy opportunities. But hey, the core messages here will probably still be relevant, hopefully for 5, 10, or more years. This is obviously a very, very wide summary of sports cards. You can basically apply the word generally to everything I'm going to say throughout this entire episode, because frankly there's way too many like unique situations that go on, and there's always that one Einstein in the comments saying, oh, that didn't work for me, I did this instead. Good job, dude. Here's your fucking gold medal. I'm so proud of you. I know that's the first time you ever heard that in your entire life, but listen, this is a podcast. It's not a thesis statement. I don't care. Apply the word generally to everything I say, or be that Einstein who's never been told they've been proud in their entire life, but you get it. With that being said, I wrote some notes, not a ton. We're going to just riff it. Number 1 is don't develop emotional attachment to trading cards. Yeah, that's a tough one. I might as well start with the most controversial one off the rip. If you have a collection and you truly love it, awesome. You should. Get items you love, get items you enjoy, and keep that shit forever. But in terms of inventory, in terms of the idea of you buying, selling, and trading stuff, you can't get attached. There's so many instances I've seen where people fake being like, oh, I bought my Grail. This is my hobby love. When I was born and I was given to my mom, my first words to her were Michael Jordan PSA 10 Fleer or LeBron James rookie card. Like, and then 3 days later, the item's available. I'm not sure what the tangent I went there was, but like, you get what I'm trying to say. If you don't develop emotional attachment to your items, it will be easier for you then to, from a business perspective, sell them, trade them, acquire more value in a way, which then allows you to then go and buy, sell, and trade more. Don't give us the fake bullshit. Don't be like, this PC for life. 4 days later, it's available. Don't do it. And I'm also not telling you to be a robot, but like, I have a PC. My PC is Game 1 jerseys and very, very few and minute like Rutgers cards, like Rutgers football players, because those cards have no value. There's no value in them. I don't mind spending $20 on a Kenny Brick card if one comes up and it's worth it, because like that's not inventory. That is me keeping it for myself. I'm not buying Juan Soto stuff as a Yankee fan. I'm not buying Juan Soto as a Yankee fan, even if I love him right now, because I know that money would frankly just be better off in my business, quote unquote, as opposed to me collecting it. I will, however, if Juan Soto signs a long-term extension with the Yankees one day, go and buy a game-worn jersey and frame it up there because, oh, wait, I have a Yankees jersey and a Padres right there. So, like, you know, I like those teams. I will own one day if it makes sense, and I'll budget accordingly for my collection. But everything else is free game. Everything has a price, and I think that's one way that you can achieve success, even if it's not the nicest thing to say. I'm not sure most people tell you that. I mean, you might think it, but like to be told it is different. Number 2, and this one is always good to know, is identifying market opportunities based on current prices. So, as I mentioned in the intro before, I'm not going to name specific players or sports or anything like that. So we're going to speak in a lot of general statements here. What I have noticed, and I think a lot of people have noticed this as well, is generally hotshot rookie and second-year players will outsell established GOATs and established players in their respective sports. It's a little weird, gotta say. I think most people understand that. I think that's a very general statement to acknowledge. There's opportunity in buying those more established players. There really will be a trend, I believe, in the next coming of years, as these over-leveraged QBs or basketball stars or highly touted prospects either begin their careers and like are good but like don't achieve long-term success, or are unable to capture that initial like spark and interest that they had, and people lose their asses on them. At least with established stars, for instance, there'll kind of always be a market for them. It might not be as high potential, but if you're a star running back, or you're a pretty good QB who made a couple Pro Bowls, or you had a pretty good career that could end up in the Hall of Fame, there'll be fans of that player who will want to own them, and they'll dip maybe 20-30%, but they also will probably stay a little more solid longer term if you need to hold it for 6 months or a year, as opposed to a hot shot 19-year-old prospect who maybe makes his debut but probably doesn't. Oh wait, he got hurt, and all of a sudden, wait, oh, this guy only debuted once and only played like 30 games. He's not what we thought, or he's average at best. Like with prospecting, you run into a lot of risk. I will always recommend the quote unquote safer route with the established player. And then if you look at market inefficiencies, there are Hall of Famers or players who are on a Hall of Fame track who frankly sell for nothing compared to their newly established peers who are rookies or second years. And it's worth being aware of those resources and the way to kind of know like what to buy based on like, hey, this player's much better. Maybe I should consider buying him as opposed to that hotshot new rookie in the league. And resources I always would recommend using. Alt is free. Alt is a free tool that lets you check prices for graded cards in PSA and BGS. They might do SGC as well, but like I don't know. I've never checked. And then Card Ladder, which is $15 a month, which I highly recommend. Not affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form, but I really became a fan of Card Ladder about 2 years ago at the National in Atlantic City. The Wi-Fi there was trash. Alt was not loading. Card Ladder did. I had always had Card Ladder and Alt because it's worth having. And Card Ladder really impressed me, and I love that service. And if you're willing to spend that money accordingly, I recommend it. It's a good way to have cost avoidance issues. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're checking comps for a card. Alt might not capture everything because it only captures graded cards, let's say. If you miss a sale or you overpay for an item by $100, $500, $1,000, let's say, a Card Ladder had that information, you didn't see it, well, shit. You probably should have bought Card Ladder for $15 a month, and you would have saved that money, or that market inefficiency that you paid as a result could have been subsidized by the fact that, oh, I have this information in front of me that Card Ladder has that the competitor does not. I know the services like Market Movers, I've never used it. I know it's way more expensive from what I've seen. It's a non-starter for me. Then there's stuff like 130 Point, which captures eBay listings. I'm not sure if they have everything under the sun now. They might actually have like Golden and PWCC and everything else, but like I no longer use 130 Point. I believe TerraPeak is just an eBay tool. So I don't claim to be an expert on those last two, but I know they exist. And there's opportunity for each, but just not my personal cup of tea, let's call it. Moving on to number 3 is, ironically, this podcast is called the Sold Too Early Sports Card Podcast, but I'd rather sell a sports card one step too early than 2 steps too late. And what I mean by that, and this is one thing that I think a lot of people have gotten a lot smarter about. By the way, I want a smarter industry. I really, truly do, above anything else. And what is happening, for instance, and once again, not naming any players, of course, you are already starting to see a little bit of a rush for football. Makes sense. We're at the beginning of April. NFL draft is about to happen. There will be QBs drafted to new teams. There'll be new competitions for wide receiver, running back, QB, obviously, and all that good stuff. But then you also will notice that there are players across the football world who are already starting to go up regardless of that. I, personally, would rather sell any QB things I own almost now before the National. It's very interesting because the National is a great time, for instance, to sell all your football. But guess what? Everyone else is doing that too. And that is at the end of July and early August, right before the season starts, because you have preseason for 2 or 3 games now. I believe they're cutting it back one. I know it's at least 2, could be 3. regardless. I don't want to own any QB cards week 1. If they're running on the field week 1 and I own a QB card, I feel like I'm screwed. It doesn't matter who it is. If they're an active QB, let's say, because there's always that time where people just sell off. They want to get out of their card. They want to move on. And I'd rather sell that QB material and those cards in, let's say, the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the national. If I can't with math the national, then I feel like I failed. As opposed to, hey, I held these for a little bit longer. It's week 1 or week 2, or it's in the preseason, let's say, and someone gets hurt or someone plays poorly, or there's anything that could happen in football where obviously one play could change an entire season for a team. And I don't want to take that risk, let's say. And this conversation is more about making sure that you have the best opportunity for success. What I'm describing is a lot safer, quote unquote, and you will always, in a sport like football, have an opportunity where a backup QB could come in and their prices will spike as a result. And that's worth considering as well as a possible play in the sports card world. Even in real life, you're seeing teams respect backup QBs more. You can look at the market for it in real life, and see how many QBs got injured last year, for instance. But it's just something to keep in mind. In my perspective, that one step too early to sell a card is better than being the one stuck holding the bag if something continues to drop, which football is a good example for that, of course. It's just like it's a very clear cycle to see. In baseball, since we're just talking in general, I will always sell a card of someone if I own their Bowman Chrome, for instance, when they debut. Every single time without fail, that shit is going on either on eBay or Facebook groups like Old School, or on Instagram at like 90% comps, give or take, just to get rid of that item. Because I guess even eBay is unfortunate to sell that, because let's say that player who debuts is not very good. eBay's return policy used to be a lot worse. I believe now it's pretty good. I think it's like 3 days to return an item before they could return within 31 days or 30 days. And obviously a lot of things can happen in the sports card world where 30 days passes or 29 days pass and they're like, hey, my child ate this card. I don't want it anymore. And then you check why. It's, oh, the hot shot prospect is down 40% because he wasn't quite good immediately in the MLB, let's say. Oh, all right, I guess I have to take this because eBay will force it. So maybe that's an opportunity to look at other platforms like Instagram to sell, or Facebook, or I think people use X to sell cards. I'm not sure if they still do, but once again, just my perspective. Or even a card show. Card shows are pretty cool. You know what I mean? It's football and baseball. Basketball is tricky. Basketball is tricky for a lot of different reasons, mostly because the best products for basketball rookies are generally kind of delayed right now. For instance, Flawless Basketball just came out for the 2020-2021 draft class, whichever one has like Chet Holmgren and Scotty Barnes and those guys. So that's, I believe, 2 years ago at this point, give or take. Their quote unquote best cards, or some of their best cards, just came out. Obviously, they're in their second year right now. It's a little annoying. It gives you the opportunity to realize, like, hey, if I really want to buy this player, I have such a long leash to. And I think you'll kind of see that be a trend as Panini kind of fizzles out of the sports card world. I think Fanatics will take over at some point in time, make their own products, or possibly even buy Panini, which will be interesting. If they buy Panini, I'll have to see what happens there. I'm not sure my thoughts just yet, of course, but basketball, you have such a long leash to buy these rookie cards. I personally would rather wait a couple years, see how their career goes on before I buy anything intense or anything super expensive. I've gone on record multiple times saying that I wish more than anything else, a product could come out before the NBA season starts of something like Optic or Prism. Prism before the NBA season would be absolutely ludicrous, but like an Optic or an Immaculate, something that has good ability to hold value long term, because unfortunately in basketball, a lot of products just don't. And you can frankly ignore most of them if you chose to. I guess I could touch on that shortly. I didn't prepare this, but In baseball, for instance, I love a lot of products that come out. But if I was to tell someone to only buy one or two, and ignore everything else, it would be Bowman Chrome and Topps Chrome, because those will hold the quote unquote longest value, as opposed to Pantheon Baseball, as opposed to Museum, as opposed to, unfortunately, like Dynasty holds its value, but like not as much as you would want to. But like those are products I love. I love Dynasty Baseball. It's one of my favorite things to buy. But if you have a rookie Bowman Chrome auto of someone, it's going to spike a lot more, for instance, than like, oh, it's their museum auto card. It's a sticker auto with like one relic. It's like, shit, this is cool. I can afford this. I like this. But baseball, unfortunately, is a sport you can ignore most stuff when it comes to investing. I'm not telling you to ignore those products, but like we're just talking about investing. Those are the ones that only matter. It's Topps and Bowman Chrome. It is what it is. Not a big deal, but like take that information for you all. Football and basketball is a little bit trickier. I mean, the main ones are Flawless, Immaculate, NT, Optic, and Prism. Those 5. There's more. Obviously, you could buy and you can make arguments for, but we're just talking about from like a general perspective. Those 5 are the best. There's other products that exist that people buy, but Origins Football, for instance, does not hold value. What's another example in basketball that just like, what's an example in basketball? I did not come prepared with this conversation, or at least for this part of the conversation, so I'm blanking on basketball products that are like okay and not things special. I have flaws on my desk. That's not super helpful. I guess Select for basketball used to be a lot better. We could use that as the example. Like that was once was a good product. Now it's okay. But like, I don't know. Unfortunately, there's a lot of overproduced garbage that doesn't really hold too much value. Oh, I guess Hoops. Hoops is an okay example too. I don't love that example there, but the point is overall, a lot of sports card products you can choose to ignore if you want to. And in basketball especially, you can wait a long ass time to buy like the best stuff of a player if you really, really like them. Let's keep going. Ooh, this is a fun one, and this relates back to Speedy Card Lister. Smaller trading cards, quote unquote, have larger margins. So obviously everyone wants to go and hit the $1 million card. They buy into a break of Flawless Basketball. They want to get the triple logo man of 3 star players, or they want to hit the true RPA in NC of that guy. Awesome, cool. I want to do that too. But you know what else I want to do? I want to make sure that my money works better for me. And one of the ways that I've been able to do that is by buying smaller cards. Let's call smaller cards here $2.50 to $10. Stuff that people don't want to list on eBay, they don't want to bother with. They're like, hey, I'll sell it at wholesale prices. I'll give it to you at 50% of value, 60% of value. Get that shit out of my house. I don't want it anymore. And I've done very well with that type of stuff. Currently, ironically enough, developing an app for myself, or possibly others, depending on how it actually goes, to use pictures that I would use and scan for myself, train it through an AI, list it on eBay for me, and then I have to ship the cards, which is a different thing, but like, hey, it's pretty good. But you can make 50% margins, 40% margins on small items, and if you have a lot of time on your hands, if you're a young college kid, or you have a younger brother, you force him to do the work for you, or you are patient, you can make a lot more money percentage-wise on smaller cards than flipping $100, $500 cards, $1,000 cards. Now, I prefer the $500,000 range, obviously, but I also know that like if I were to trade cards full time, I would buy a lot more lower end stuff because that would pay the bills. And frankly, that's not a bad gig when you are, let's say, listing 30 cards, 40 cards an hour, and you make a couple bucks per each card. That quickly adds up. It sucks to do, but you can do that and afford to live your life if you chose to. Number 5, I wrote down 8 things. This is number 5. Building actual valuable human connections. This is a tough one to talk about for me because like in the back of my head, I also am aware of the fact that your value in sports cards is directly monetary. And that is a shitty thing to say, but I think acknowledging it makes it at least acceptable in the fact of like to your peers and to those who are at a show with you or to your friends online or anything like that, a lot of your value as a person is not you. It is your ability to buy an item from someone or to sell an item to someone or provide value to that person. That is really shitty. So, building those human connections with your peers is so much more valuable in this cutthroat industry than anything else. Um, and unfortunately, I can't give you a lot of tips on that. I think it's just more being aware that you are being quote unquote used for your finances. You're being used as an scapegoat for someone to sell or trade their items if they possibly overpaid and just want to dump it. You exist to keep the cycle going of either getting inventory to repackers or to buy into a repack or to buy into a group break or to sell sports cards to a peer. Unfortunately, that is the majority of our interactions. They're strictly monetary. And I think being aware of that helps in a way, but I think it obviously sucks. The sports card industry as a whole, there's a very weird like hobby positivity mission in a way that people go on. And I don't think it's really helpful. I think it's okay to be critical of things within the sports card world. And I think part of that does tie into just calling it what it is, which is our industry is very monetary based. That is your only value. And we, as sports card collectors in a way, and people who buy, sell, and trade, whatever, we're mooches. We mooch off the success of people who will never know we exist in most instances because professional athletes don't give a fuck about you or I. And we provide them value in a way that their interest is shown to other dudes, and I guess occasionally a couple women who collect sports cards, but like we don't provide real value. We elicit value from those who don't know we exist, and that's okay in a way. I don't know. I brought the mood down a little bit. Oops. Well, this is about human connections. Shit. Find people who you can actually have a conversation with, not about sports cards. Find people who actually like will be a human being to you. You'll be much happier. I am very thankful that I have people like Kai in my life. People like Mikey from Mikey's Cards, Lane, LJK Cards, Lucas, Sports Card Mania, Sheik, the Iron Sheik, Matt, National Treasure. I think it's Instagram. God, everyone's fucking Instagram names are so confusing. Anyone who's been on this podcast, Austin, NPT, Jordan. Oh God, Jordan's name. Oh, I don't remember Jordan's Instagram. He has the card shop. Shit, I was literally just talking to him today. There's so many more I could think of. Brad at Outlaw Sports Cards. Shit, there's not like an Oscar. I'm not winning an award here. I'm trying to just think of my friends who won't get offended if I just miss their names. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you riff. You don't come prepared with a name list of everyone. And if your name is like Card Collector 11712 and we're best buddies, I'm sorry, your Instagram name sounds like everyone else, and it's quite hard to remember that. There's a good connection into my 6th point, the importance of reputation. Hello, hi, what is up? I am a person who is very notable on Instagram, or infamous, as you might want to say, because I'm very good at making deals happen. I take myself about 70% seriously, give or take, depending on the situation. But when it comes to negotiating deals and actually the shipping of items to their future homes, I can name the times I've been in the wrong on deals over 9 years on one hand. And it's like 1 or 2. I think the only issue I've ever had where I truly was at fault was like a Ben Simmons card from like Impeccable in like 2016, 2017. I like shipped like 3 days later than I should have because one of my brother's houses, like his house, had a leak and we had to fix it. And that was like way more important than like me shipping a card. Could I have been better about communicating that? Yes. Did we fix it and it was resolved? Yes. It was fine. Like that's like one of the only times I was not proper and upfront about either shipping time or maybe condition or something. Like there's really, I try to be over communicative with people, over communicate with people, because like your reputation matters so much online, at least in the fact of like making deals happen. In real life, it's a mix how much your reputation matters versus not, because if you have money, people don't really give a shit. I think actually more online than in general, people like to kind of talk down on one another, like this guy's a scammer, don't deal with him, he did this, or this person sucks, I don't want to deal with him. But then that person comes back in real life and nothing has happened because no one fucking cares. And if you have cash and it's green, go for it, dude. You're good. You're totally good. What did you trim cards or something? I don't care. How many Benjamins you giving me right now? Yeah, I don't know. Reputation's important. Keep your reputation good. Poke some fun at the sports card world when you can, like me, and hope you don't trigger too many people with some of the shit you're saying, because unfortunately, definitely working on that right now. Ooh, this is a fun one. Thank you for the people who commented this to me and sent it to me as well. Sports card etiquette at a show. Setting up at card shows is honestly one of the most fun things you can do, in my opinion. I love it. I am someone who travels across the country to like the Dallas Card Show, the Burbank Card Show, the Chicago Spectacular when it doesn't impede with Dallas, which is a whole different conversation. Previously, I had been setting up in Nashville for their show, the National, and then stuff in New Jersey and New York based on my availability. Because guess what? As much as I love sports card shows, I believe in a balance of my life. I think there's other priorities besides sports trading cards, and frankly, you should too. You should have other interests. You should do other things. The main things that I would keep in mind for a sports card show and the way to properly set up, quote unquote, is some essentials. I would highly recommend getting a portable charger for your iPhone or Android, whatever phone you have. If you don't have a smartphone, I can't help you. This podcast is not for you. I can't help you if you have like a Nokia phone, and I can't help you if you don't even know what Nokia is. Portable charger, super duper important. I would always recommend bringing like a couple snacks and like a water or two if you can bring that. You might be at your table for 4 or 5 hours. You're gonna be hungry, dude. You're gonna need like water. You're gonna need something like keep your brain going, because sports card shows are mentally draining. As a dealer, I think it's important to have that stuff. I would bring a price gun. I would bring PSA and BGS perfect fit team bags. I think that's important just for like presentation. I price all my cards. I think it's super important too. The reason being that if I'm walking a show and your stuff is not priced, unless I gotta have it, I'm not going to talk to you. I'll just walk away from your table like, oh, that's cool. Keep walking. If your sticker prices are old or out of date, like it's at least better, because then I know either like, oh, what's my price range, or how much can I really haggle this guy down, or how much room is this guy going to have, or is he realistic, or is he on 2020 prices? Like it lets me know with a sticker price, like how I can interact with you and what makes sense for me and you to talk about. If you don't have prices, I won't engage with you. That's me walking a show. I think there's something to etiquette when people walk up to your table and want to buy. Repackers kind of can do whatever they want, which is good and bad, because they buy everything. They buy junk, they buy expensive cards, they buy the $100 to $300 cards. Repackers are paying pretty good margins these days, 85-ish% of sold comps. The ones that are at least not scummy about it. There are some who can be a little scummy, who offer 75 to 80%. If you don't know what you're doing, you will lose more money or lose the potential to make more sound to a repacker, but like just once again, being a human being and like having conversations gets you a lot farther. I mean, as someone who has been the same Instagram name for 8 or 9 years, give or take, never really updated their logo. People know who I am. I'm generally pretty friendly in real life, and people like to talk to me. I've had very like normal, long conversations with just even strangers about sports cards or players in general, or sports in general, or just life because I'm a human being. I can talk about other things, and whether they buy a car from me or not, I feel like we have a human connection. And if they ever see me at a show, they will come and say hi. I would say probably 5 to 10% of the people I see at a show, even if I don't deal with them, will go and just say hi to me. And it's pleasant. It's super nice. This podcast also lets me be thankful to people. I met several friends now from this podcast. Zion. Oh man, I forgot Zion's name before. I'm sorry, dude. PMG Cards. He listens to the podcast. He was on it like a month or so ago, 2 months ago, whatever. And he became my friend because he said, "Hey, I love your podcast," and we just started talking, and it was like good. And I bought one lot of cards off Zion. I don't think there's anything else we've ever done deal wise, but like that's being a human being, that's having conversations. If a stranger walks up to the table, I'm like, "Hey guys, like, how's it going? If you want to see anything closer, like let me know. Happy to help. Like, you want to take a look at this card? You want to see anything closer? You want to check comps? Like, hey, like go for it." Like just being a human being about it really, truly just like gets shit going. And one thing I might actually change about my approach, thanks to Mikey's cards, Mikey's cards actually, his Instagram is like, "Hey, you guys want to see anything closer? Let me know. And if you're selling, like, happy to take a look too." Like some shit like that. Like that way, it's like, "Oh, hey, this person has engaged with me directly at my table. They said they're buying, and they're being friendly. Wow, hang on a second. Let me stop walking the show. Let me approach this guy. Let me see what he's about." And that might be a way to help make a deal happen by just like being a human being about things. It gets you a lot farther. What else is there? How to act, how to set up, examples and tricks. Price your cards, like I said. Portable charger, super essential. Understand that shows are a marathon, especially the major ones. Like Friday at the Dallas Card Show, for right now, for reference, show starts at 9 a.m. Central Time and goes until, I believe, 6 p.m. It might be 8 p.m. Eastern. It's one of those crazy, or Central Time, I should say. It's either 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. And then you have dinner, and then you could go to trade night. It's a long goddamn day if you're a dealer. And pace yourself accordingly. If you've never been to a major card show, like, it is very overwhelming to walk, and it is especially overwhelming if you are unprepared as a dealer, because when you're a dealer, you have to be on your A game all the time, because if you're not, someone will take advantage of you, either on the price of your card or God forbid they steal from you. You got to just be sharp, and that's in general too. Like, you have to be not very trusting of other people within the sports card world, unless you actually know them as a human being. You have to be a little bit jaded in how you approach stuff, which is less than fortunate, but it's just the reality of the situation. What else would I discuss about a card show? Setting up process is fun. Walking around, which I don't really do as much anymore. It's just not my favorite thing to do in the world. Walking around a show, I think the most important thing to do is either have a plan of like what you want to own, or have realistic budgets in place. That's in general for sports cards. Like, having a proper budget of like what you're willing to spend or lose, or to try and like create more value out of, is super duper important. I don't have all my money in sports cards. I don't have a majority of my money in sports cards. I keep an amount that I'm comfortable with. If sports cards went to zero, I could still afford to live my life, pay for my wedding, pay my bills, and it would suck. I would be unhappy if sports cards went to zero, but I could still afford to do things I needed to do. I'm not over leveraged in any way, shape, or form on my cards, which, ironically enough, I've heard a lot of people in the higher end aspects of the sports cards can be and are, which is unfortunate. Obviously, don't wish that on anyone, but it sucks. I don't know. I think it's important to take in a show for what it is, find what you're looking for if you can, and if you are a newbie or newish into sports cards, just strike up conversations. Kind of all ties back into that being human being thing, because you might make a friend, and that friend might allow you to find others that have a similar interest. Hell, I'm playing FIFA with card collectors who I'm friends with. I'm happy to know. But like, it's good to like do things outside of sports cards with them. I have had the ability to go to games and other events with other peers who are my friends who I wouldn't have had to otherwise had I not struck up a conversation with them or did a nice deal with them online or just been a human being in general and like just happened to know them. It's kind of crazy how that part works out. I think that's the most important. I can give you all the numbers and all the tips and tricks to sports cards. Being a human being is the most important one. And a lot of people don't touch on that. And then ironically, one of the last notes I have here, which is perfect for tax season, is keeping your books and shit organized, dude. Sports card books and your ability to track your inventory and what you sold and bought things for is crucial. Please do it. Shit sucks. I can tell you for a fact I don't like to, but my books are pretty good and I could be better about it, but mine are good enough that I can easily do my taxes in about an hour or two with TurboTax because I give them all the information and they calculate it out for me because I want to work smarter. I don't want to work harder, and they do it for me. So that's my little riff about taxes and the books I keep. All right, let me look back on this real quick and make sure that I touched on what I wanted to. I didn't name any players specifically that I would buy or tell you to buy. I think this information is timeless. I think the main takeaways here really is emotional attachment to sports cards is tough to do, but if you are trying to sell inventory, you have to be emotionless. There are market opportunities that people are aware of, and I think there's ways for you to take advantage of it. I think the way you take advantage of it, truthfully, to the maximum, selling a step earlier than people, as opposed to being too late, because then you unfortunately lose a lot more than you win. I think there's the ability to actually sell smaller trading cards for higher margins. I think that is something that allows you to kind of zag when other people zig, especially if you're competing against repackers, let's say, for instance, because repackers who buy at better margins that realistically the average person can afford to are buying $100 to $500 items, and then occasionally chasers that are $1,000 plus. If you have the time capabilities to actually sell smaller items, you can do pretty well. I can tell you that when I was in college, I mean, that's all I could afford. I truthfully was someone who had no money. I had nothing in college. I was happy to have my own room where I could keep my sports cards with me at school and grow my business from there. I used to package up cards in one of our libraries at the campus, and then drop them off in the mailbox on our college campus, and then pick up my mail from our mailroom. And like I can relate to those who don't have money who want to like try and grow their business out of it. I think that ties back into my ability to build valuable human connections. I think it's important for you to do that too. We have a big issue in the sports card world where people are truthfully NPCs. And I will always call them that because, and if you've ever been to a card show, you've ever stepped at a card show, you've seen someone like this. Hello, if you want to see anything closer, let me know. Head down immediately. Pulls up alt or a card ladder, goes, does not talk to you, does not make eye contact with you either. I don't think they know how to make eye contact. I guess like Elon Musk or whoever's like designing the AI, like just can't do eye contact. Go, take their phone, scan card. Yeah, the last comp is 100. Would you take 80? No. Okay. And then robot away. Like, it is really hard to sell to people like that because, frankly, first off, everyone is paying about the same margins if you have the connections or the ability to find people who are either repackers or you sell on eBay yourself, obviously, which is you can just put it on eBay. Yeah, I don't know. I've really have come around to the idea lately that if you don't build human connections and you can't do it properly, I can't help you. Like, if that NPC offered 95%, sure, dude. Hello, robot. I love the robot universe. Please take over the cosmos. Take all my cards too. Give me that money. I'll see you later. I don't know. It's hard to. Good advice, just being a human being. I don't know how else to say that to you. Just like be a person. Have a conversation. People want to deal with you more if you can. Your reputation matters. Guess what? The same NPC example I use, I've known of this person for years. And whenever I make the NPC reference in like my stories, or even right now as I think about it, I think of the same person. No matter what happens now with that person, they will always kind of be the prime example of NPC in my head. Not good. That's not a good thing at all. But there's my phone. And that's just one of those things that kind of happens. Your reputation is super, super important. Be legit. Make people comfortable in deals. Be a human being about it. You'll do well. The main things about sports card etiquette and shows, portable chargers, food and drink, understand it's a marathon. Have fun. That's important too. But like if you're looking at a business perspective, all the above kind of like keep building on one another. Such as like building and keeping good books. It's kind of everything I have. I'm going to check real quick if there's another thing that came up because someone else mentioned this. I'm just reading this super quick. This person was talking about football and being a little bit greedy when others are fearful and fearful where others are greedy. Yeah, there's something to that. You're going to be greedy, but in the right context. I am more trying to give you the ability to be intelligent and think critically than anything else. And for the amount of preparation I gave this episode, I think I did pretty well in describing how I grew in the sports card world. I did fine. I think I can do more in my life in the sports cards, more outside of sports cards, but I know that I have more knowledge to share. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you at a show if you ever see me. I'm pretty good in real life. Instagram, I can be kind of a jerk, but like I think it's just more of like, unfortunately, building up barriers. You have to, because online people are much worse. In real life, pretty good, gotta say. Always happy to talk sports cards. You ever have any questions, either online or in person? Always happy to give people the time of the day in general. I think this tool and this episode really kind of, from my jaded perspective, shows how to scale a business. I don't know. It's tough to say. I don't think everything here was perfect, but I think it was real. And I think it's going to be timeless too, because there's a lot of good material here. And you don't have to agree or disagree with me, but if you think critically about it, that's half the battle. Because you're not buying a book. You're not buying a course. You listen to a 45-minute podcast about sports cards and how I grew my example of extraordinary cards to $1 million, $1.5 million business in a couple of years. And if I could do it, you can too. Come on. Like, who the fuck am I? I'm just some guy. But you listen to the podcast. You got to that point. I'll see you guys next week, hopefully with Kai, and we'll discuss something a lot more fun. I don't know what it is yet. Ask me in about 7 days. Peace.